Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to an Aussie Cyclone Chasers Cyclone Update from Ground Zero at Cooktown. My name's Chris Nitzo, with me here is Travis Robertson, and with us also is Mick Keeley, who has gone out around the town to get some before and after photos of the situation that could eventuate here. On your screens right now is Tropical Cyclone Ita. You can see the eye quite clearly. It is tracking in a south-southwest direction, but it's doing so very slowly, probably about 10 kilometers an hour, not much more than that. At this track, assuming a straight line is reached, it will hit Cooktown head-on. However, we all know that tropical cyclones never travel in straight lines. They do little wobbles to the west, little wobbles to the east, and but overall, this entire coastline here is expected to bear the brunt of whatever Tropical Cyclone Ita has to offer. And we see this particular coastline right in through here, and all the way even to Cairns needs to be alert and aware, because if the cyclone decides to track in a more southerly rather than south-southwesterly direction, and almost due south, for instance, the area around Cairns to Port Douglas is certainly in with the chance at copping a direct hit of certainly a severe tropical cyclone. So folks, there is still a little bit of error there, but overall we still expect the system to make land around the Cooktown area, maybe just to the north, maybe just to the south, but with that error track margin starting to push a little bit further to the east, suggesting that the system may even not make a landfall, or may be very, very close to land the whole way down towards the Herbert and Lower Burdekin coastline. You can see the system is still a Category 5 system, but it is undergoing what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. That's where we see a small eye and a larger eye, and what happens is... So what I mean by that is we have this is the eye of the cyclone right in there, but around it is another ring, and this other ring is a new eye trying to form. So basically we've got a ring of thunderstorms out here outside of that second clear area. Now that ring of thunderstorms is likely to create a new eye of the system. Now when that happens, until that eye tightens up, we're going to see a little bit of a weakening trend in the system, according to what we normally see in these cycles. And then when that happens and the new eye tightens up, if the system is still located offshore, we may see an intensification further than what was already or what the system was before this cycle happened. So folks, it's quite an interesting little process, and it happens every couple of days in those intense systems where they undergo this eye wall replacement cycle. So we'll be watching this radar very, very carefully over the next 6 to 12 hours, just to see exactly how this eye wall replacement affects the tropical cyclone itself. As I say, normally what we'll see is a brief weakening trend, followed by a sharp intensification trend. So once again, looking at the latest track map, we can see that the system crosses the coast as a 5, but quickly weakens into a 4 as it heads straight over the top, basically, of Cooktown overnight tonight, probably just after midnight tonight, between sort of 12 and 3 in the morning. Then the system tracks down the coast as a Category 1, so producing gale force winds all the way south to possibly even as far as Innisfail, then pops off the coast between Innisfail and Townsville, and when it does so, it does have just the slightest potential of reformation into a cyclone. Obviously, if the error margin out here, this grey error margin, is true to form, and the system continues to track just slightly eastwards, we will see the system maintain cyclone intensity throughout its track across or near the coastline of Queensland. So looking at the last 6 hours of imagery here, we can see that the system has tracked in a south-southwesterly direction throughout the past 6 hours. And you can see a very, very nice tight eye, very good spiral banding around the system. Look, it does seem to have weakened just slightly, but once again, it is likely to be undergoing that eye wall replacement, or at least the first stages of it, and that's what we expect. We expect a slight weakening. But look, in terms of structural integrity, the cyclone is looking very, very nice indeed. It's probably the best coral sea one. In fact, it is the best coral sea one we've seen since Yassi in 2011. It packs about as strong winds as Yassi, maybe slightly stronger, but is much, much smaller than Yassi. The JTWC track map has the system crossing just to the north of Cooktown, pushing slightly west of the town, and then recrossing the coast just to the south of Cairns. Now, the big issue here in the JTWC is I think based on that track they've overestimated the potential severity of the system. I mean, you're talking about a system that has travelled 300 kilometres over land, and the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre still continue to keep it at a maximum wind speed of 100 knots in terms of maximum gusts. Now that seems very unreasonable and unreliable, especially considering the fact that we have such high mountain ranges between Cooktown and Townsville, particularly that area between Cooktown and Ingham sees a lot of high mountain range regions, and if the system tracks in this particular direction over those mountain ranges, it will disrupt the flow of the low level circulation, and so we don't expect that the system can possibly maintain that type of intensity. That's why I think the Bureau of Meteorology's model guidance, track guidance in terms of its intensity is probably slightly more on the ball than this one. But once again, remembering that if the system remains offshore, there is still a very good likelihood that the system will be a very intense tropical cyclone on its way southwards. And you can see here the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, just an absolutely astounding error margin possible in their track forecast. So the Bureau of Meteorology, much smaller error margin in their track forecasts. So at this stage, I would go with confidence more with the Bureau of Meteorology track forecast, and be aware that if a system is travelling inland towards Cairns, it's not going to hit Cairns as a Cat 3 or 4, which is what the JTWC do with it. So both track forecasts, the BOM and the JTWC, very, very close. The JTWC have a much larger error margin, the BOM a much smaller error margin. So both tracks are going to be reasonably accurate. So as I say, the only issue we have with the JTWC is the amazing amount of intensity that they keep with the system, even though it's tracking over land and mountain ranges. So here are the intensity forecasts. We can see that the next 12 hours is where the cyclone is most intense, and after about mid-afternoon this afternoon, the cyclone starts to drop in intensity, and as it makes landfall tonight, it's likely to have made landfall as a high-end Category 4 or low-end Category 5 tropical cyclone, and then its intensity estimates drop significantly. So as we head to 36 hours time, which is around about the time, or 24 to 36 hours time, around about the time we're starting to see effects on the more populated areas around Cairns, we're down to about a 50 or 60 knot system, which is more around the Category 2 mark, which once again goes more towards what the Bureau of Meteorology are thinking compared to the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre. Here are a range of track model forecasts. You can see the system makes initial landfall, or gets extremely close to making initial landfall, right around Cooktown, and then from there pushes in a south to south-southeast direction, either inland, or just off the coast. You can see a beautiful image here of the system structure, absolutely astounding imagery here of the system structure on its approach to the Queensland coast. And here's another one from earlier today as well. You can just see perfect symmetry on the system earlier today. As I say, it probably has slightly weakened since then, but overall it's still a very well structured tropical cyclone, as you would expect with something that's this severe. I guess the big thing to note here, folks, is that the system is very, very tightly packed. So that means that the areas around the circulation, like for instance Cooktown right now, getting even as far south as Port Douglas, you're only going to be experiencing fresh to strong winds, and then suddenly, and very, very suddenly and very quickly, the winds will pick up dramatically as that circulation centre gets close to the coast. You can see the wind field radius here of those really intense winds, particularly on the southwestern quadrant, which is quite normal. So this area from here to here is where all the real strong winds are being packed in the system. You can see that the area to the northwest of the system not packing too much at all. And look, this is a very, very normal thing for climatological cyclones here in Australia. We tend to see, particularly in Queensland, we tend to see this southwestern quadrant being the quadrant that packs all the punch, and it's usually the quadrant that hits the coast first. So folks, obviously the other thing that we need to talk about is the storm surge threat. You can see that with the storm surge, for instance, we're getting winds that are onshore out here, so we're getting winds here onshore, so anywhere south of the system, and even after the system crosses, you'll get a continuation of this push of water onto the coastline. So areas that are on the east coast, particularly near the cyclone track, obviously, and just to the south of the cyclone track, the most susceptible places to this storm surge. If you are on the north side of the cyclone, you're not going to see a storm surge because you have winds coming off the land. So folks in the Cape Melville and Northwards regions, there is absolutely no threat of a storm surge there. So if we look at the range of model tracks from the European model, we can see that overall the Euro is expecting the system to cross the coast just to the north of Cooktown, but we do have some outliers that still suggest that the system will remain offshore, but most of them do have the coastal crossing just to the north here of Cooktown, possibly just a little slight southwest shift just before landfall, and then the system recurves and pops off or just near the coast between Cairns and Townsville. So expect conditions to deteriorate between Cairns and Townsville starting from tomorrow as the system tracks further to the south. The UK Met 3-day forecast also suggests a coastal crossing right around Cooktown. However, we see that there are some more outlying models suggesting a coastal crossing will occur just to the north of Cairns as well. So really that coast between Cooktown to Cairns do still need to understand that even if the system, and it's all about all the wobbles it does on the way to the coast. Now tropical cyclones don't tend to travel in a straight line. They wobble 10 or 20 kilometres either side of a straight line. And so what will happen here is that 10 or 20 kilometre wobble will be all important as to whether the system actually makes landfall or just remains just offshore. Now it only needs to be just offshore to be able to tap into some of that warm ocean water. So it's only a matter of being 20 or 30 k's offshore and it can still tap into that warm water and remain a significant tropical cyclone, and vice versa. It only needs to be 10 k's onshore or 20 k's onshore before it weakens considerably and substantially, because it can't tap into that warm ocean water. Remember, cyclones generate their energy from the ocean water that has to be above a certain threshold, which is about 26.5 degrees. And if we look longer term at the Euro ensemble, we see that overall the system continues tracking southeast off the Queensland coastline. No real threat there to the southeast Queensland coastline, but once again, we do need to watch for an increase in shower activity in this southeastern third of Queensland. If we look at the GFS model, we expect a coastal crossing according to the GFS model right around about the 12 midnight to 4 a.m. point, right on about Cooktown, and then tracking south right along the coast and then pushing off southeast or south-southeast initially just off the coast between Cairns and Townsville, and then pushing further to the southeast towards New Zealand. Now once again with the GFS scenario, we're going to see a big increase in weather in the more populated areas of Cairns to Townsville as we head towards Saturday night and Sunday for Townsville, and Saturday night for Cairns. The Canadian CMC model hits the coast just to the south of Cooktown and then pushes it back offshore around Cairns and then basically east off the Queensland coast. The Canadian model sometimes simplifies the steering mechanisms, as you can see here, a quick jut to the southwest and a quick unexplained jut to the east. So folks, do take this one with a grain of salt, but look, the general scenario of it pushing south-southwest or south, hitting the coast somewhere near the Cooktown area, and then pushing southwards again and back offshore is the general scenario that almost every global model is predicting. So I guess it's just a difference of opinion between the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre and the Bureau of Meteorology as to which intensity forecasts are going to be more on the money, because obviously the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is a disastrous scenario in terms of intensity forecast. The Bureau of Meteorology, which I personally think are probably slightly more on the money, a lot less damaging for that region. So for today's rainfall, we're going to see an increase in rain. We've already seen that on radar anywhere to the north of about Ingham. We could even see some showers popping off onto the coast anywhere north of Serena, I should say, and some heavy rainfall developing around obviously where we are right now, Cooktown, and possibly a little bit further north. As we head to Saturday, we're going to see that increase in rain dropping southwards, and so Cooktown will probably be the northernmost extent of that heavy rain tomorrow, and most of the heavy rain will then be located sort of Port Douglas south to about Townsville as we head towards tomorrow night towards the Townsville area. And also the central Queensland coast, remembering that stuff about the feeder bands I talked about yesterday, we're going to see more of that stuff tomorrow on that central Queensland coast. So anywhere north of Rocky could see showers there on Saturday. On Sunday, that rainfall activity now pushes further to the south. The good news about this from a rainfall perspective is everyone's going to get some, and no one's going to get 1,000 millimeters. It's going to push through fairly quickly. Once it starts to move southeast, it's going to recurve fairly quickly. At the moment, though, we're not expecting that recurve just yet. We're still expecting a south-southwest motion for the next 24 to 36 hours, and then possibly a southeastward motion and an acceleration after that. So as we head to Sunday, we're going to see Townsville being the northernmost extent of the heavy rain, with the heaviest rain located around the Mackay area of the Central Coast, with Sundays pushing as far south as the central Queensland coastline around the Bundaberg region. So as we head to Monday, we will see that most of the rainfall will then exit the coastline of Queensland. We'll still see some lingering showers along the coast here from the southeast flow, and some lingering moisture in the northern part of Queensland, resulting in some isolated showers. But all the crazy stuff has already happened by Monday night, and then on Tuesday, just some lingering instability creating isolated showers, possibly some isolated thunderstorms too in the peninsular region of Queensland. Folks, just before I leave you tonight, I just want to show you how we're going to be live streaming here and how to access it. This is our website, ozcyclonechasers.com.au, ozcyclonechasers.com.au, and from there you need to go to, on this top banner, you need to go to the current chase page. That's this page here. Click on it. It will load up. My internet connection's a little slow. We are in the town of Cooktown right now. It tells you what we're doing, what we're expecting. We're live streaming from about 8:50. We were live streaming earlier. We're having a break at the moment. We'll be live streaming again probably from about 3 or 4 p.m. And then on here you can have a chat. So get in here and get in and chat to us and chat to each other and talk to each other about what's going on. So please feel free to do that. We want this to be an interactive experience for you. Okay, and down here, if you want to, you can leave us some Facebook comments on the site. So, thank you very much for watching our video update. Stay safe if you're in Cooktown to Cairns area. Be aware that the system might track a little bit further to the south or east, and so you do need to be aware and alert and have your cyclone kits prepared. From us in Cooktown, we're going to bunker down, but before we do, we're going to go around a little bit longer and show you around the place. Tonight we will live stream until from probably our motel room. We will live stream because it will get too dangerous to be out in the middle of the night in a Cat 5. It's not really a smart thing to do. So we will be live streaming until the power goes out and until the towers go out. So once the power goes out, we'll use some backup power for a while, and then we'll prioritise that for our own benefit rather than live streaming. So we'll try and live stream for as long as possible without obviously hurting our long-term survival chances. Alright folks, thanks for watching today, and we'll talk again hopefully tomorrow. Good night. Goodbye.